Recording in progress.
Good evening to everyone who has joined us today for this first dialogue of India Energy Samvad, an initiative of Center for Public Policy Research. CPPR is an independent public policy think tank based in Kochi in the Indian state of Kerala. Our engagement in public policy began in 2004 and has initiated open dialogue, policy changes, and institutional transformation in the areas of international relations, security, livelihood, education, urban reform, governance, law, and related subjects. To know more about what we do, please do visit our website www.cppr.in and our social media accounts. I am Ritika Syal, Senior Officer for Research at CPPR. To begin today's proceedings, I hand over the floor to Dr. D. Dhanuraj, the Chairman of CPPR, for his opening remarks on the India Energy Samvad. Thank you.
Thank you, Ritika. Dr. Cyril, Dr. Madhu Pillai, Dr. Ritika, and all the participants and viewers from across the world, a very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to this very, very exciting moment in our journey, CPPR's journey of policy engagements, interacting with experts, conducting events like this in terms of updating every stakeholder about the various aspects of public policy discussions, various aspects of policy engagements, various interest groups and their ideas about the emerging issues and their concerns about public policy architecture. So today we are starting at another journey, and we are launching India Energy Samvad. CPPR as a think tank has worked extensively in different thematic areas and conducted engaging discussions the last 18 years. We work with the governments, academia, and other research institutions from India and abroad in various policy engagements. Though we have a fair idea about what is happening in the energy sector, this is the first time CPPR is initiating a dialogue and research activity in the energy sector. I should say, we as an organization and all my colleagues are grateful to Dr. Madhu Pillai, our special advisor in energy, for curating this Samvad series. As part of the Samvad series, we are planning to host experts from across the world to discuss the relevant and emerging issues in the energy sector. We're also planning to undertake few research activities to begin with that will be published in the public domain in the coming months. We also have objectives like studying and analyzing best feasible blend of conventional and unconventional energy, understanding how the energy market and tariff have undergone a change in the recent decades, the policies and the how the governments are looking at these emerging markets that include sources of energy, pricing, usage, etc. Bringing together relevant stakeholders for discussions on importance of sustainable energy generation and usage, creating awareness about leveraging unconventional energy sources such as natural gas that include LNG, CNG, solar, hydrogen, wind, exploring government commitments towards the energy sector at the national and international levels, to analyze on tariff regulations and pricing in the energy sector, explore the financial and practical dimensions of electric mobility, especially for Indian markets, analyzing and functioning of state electricity boards in India. This is for people who are joining us from outside India, the state entities which are responsible for energy from production to distribution. Majority of the state electricity boards are responsible. We want to understand how the energy infrastructure operate in India, about their efficiency, how are we going to improve or upgrade their capacities, modernizing machineries used in the sector, etc., etc. And of course, we also are interested in generating actionable policy recommendations through deliberations and dialogues. This is what India Energy Samvad is all about. We'll be conducting this series for the next 6 months. And at the end of the dialogue, I'm sure we will have a robust and insightful policy recommendations to various stakeholders or participants in this dialogue series. To share a gist of what the India is all about, in terms of energy consumption. In India's total electricity consumption is around 1,137 billion kilowatt hour of electric energy per year, or per capita income, per capita consumption. I come to the per capita income later. Per capita consumption is an average of 824 kilowatt hour, whereas USA's per capita consumption is 11,842.76 kilowatt hours. So, and as India entering 2022, and Prime Minister Modi talks a lot about the $5 trillion economy, I believe energy plays an important role, a significant role. I think this comparison between per capita consumption in India and US actually is also comparison between the economies of these two countries. $2 trillion and $22 trillion. So it's 10 times. So I believe if you're able to increase and provide the sufficient electricity, meaning power, to every citizen in this country, that will lead to growth in economy as well. That will generate employment, that will improve the living standards, that will help us to support and facilitate the energy demands that are going to be there in the next few decades. And India is also committed to climate change. I'm sure all the participants are well aware of our commitments at Glasgow event, and we'll be mentioning the climate change obligations in this dialogue. And with that, I wish we are going to have a very wonderful, interesting and insightful discussion today. And I recall one of these famous quotes by Thomas Alva Edison. He said, "We will make electricity so cheap that only the rich will burn candles." I hope we are in that process of making electricity available, affordable, and accessible to every citizen on the planet Earth. And I am so happy and delighted to we have two experts joining us today, Dr. Cyril and Dr. Madhu Pillai. I welcome both of them to this wonderful, the first episode of Energy Samvad series. And I also welcome all the participants who are joining us from across the world. Welcome you all, and stay tuned and have a wonderful dialogue. Thanks. Back to Ritika.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dhanuraj, for this overview and for setting the context for the dialogue series. It is my honor to introduce our speaker for today, Dr. Cyril Weddershoven. He is a long-time observer of global energy market and presently holds several advisory positions with international think tanks in the Middle East, the energy sectors in Netherlands, United Kingdom, and the United States. Dr. Weddershoven earned his postgraduate degrees at the University of London and an MA in Middle East Studies at the University of Nijmegen, the Netherlands. He also has been involved in consulting and advisory work in the oil, gas, and energy sectors in the Middle East and North African region, and he has held several senior publishing positions in leading energy publications and has worked as principal at the Capgemini International Consulting on M&A operations in various countries of Middle East and North Africa. He is also advising the Dutch government and the international organizations on related issues. Dr. Cyril Weddershoven is owner of the Dutch consultancy Verosi and global head strategy and risk at Berry Commodities Fund. He is also a fellow at Payne Institute, Colorado School of Mines at Denver. He is associated with the Middle East Directions Program, European University Institute Florence, and he is a teacher of commodities and trade at the Erasmus School of Management, the Commodities Program. During his years, he has worked and lived in many countries, including the UK, the USA, as well as the UAE. We welcome you, Dr. Cyril, to this dialogue. Our host for today, Dr. Madhu P. Pillai, is a project management specialist with more than 36 years of broad-based oil and gas, petrochemical, and power industry experience in operations as well as project management, with the geographical spread of India, Nigeria, USA, Bahrain, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia. He is currently associated with an MNC as advisor oil and gas projects based out of Saudi Arabia and is special advisor for industry and energy at CPPR. Dr. Pillai is an engineer with the double post-graduation in human resource management as well as an MBA in international business and strategic management. He also holds a PhD in strategic project management and is a fellow of leading international organizations like AACE International and the International Cost Engineering Council. Dr. Pillai was awarded O.T. Zimmerman Funder Award by the AACE International in 2008 for his contribution to the global cost management professional community. He also serves on the board of International Cost Engineer Council and executive director as the executive director and is the honorary global ambassador for the World Project Management Forum. Dr. Pillai is also on the board of the leading Copenhagen-based Danish NGO Water, Air and Food Awards. He has served on various international boards and especially on the board of Project Managers Without Borders. We at CPPR are extremely grateful to both of you and we look forward to today's dialogue. A small note to the participants who have joined us today at Zoom. You may type in your questions on the chat box in the Zoom platform, and those who are joining us from the live stream at YouTube and Facebook can leave a comment there. Our team will direct the questions to the speakers. You can follow our live tweets and share your thoughts using the hashtag India Energy Samvad. With this, I hand over the floor to Dr. Madhu Pillai to start the proceedings.
Thank you, Ritika, and thank you, Dhanuraj. And morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who has joined this event for different parts of the world. Now, let me welcome Dr. Cyril Weddershoven to the India Energy Samvad. Before I start, I have a request. You know, normally all Dutch names are not easy for all Indian tongues. So can I call you Cyril, just to make life easy for me?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Able to.
Fine, good. Thank you so much. Because it makes the whole thing a bit more easier. Okay. Now, at CPPR, we have been contemplating the idea of having a series of dialogues on global and domestic energy market, especially encompassing all associated challenges. And as Dr. Thandaraj mentioned, today we are just kicking it off. This has been a brainchild for all of us for about 4 to 5 months. So we kind of nurtured and developed it to this level, and today we are just kicking off. And in fact, the whole team is excited about it. In this initiative, we will be engaging with the scientific community, the experts, the industry experts, the academia, think tank, and all other stakeholders related to the energy industry globally. Recently completed COP26 in Glasgow had given a lot of importance and visibility to these concepts around the world. But let me make it unambiguously clear that our focus is not just going to be on the environmental aspects. We just want to blend all aspects, right from business, geopolitics, global economics, national policies, and of course the environment. So this is going to be the balance around the discussion. It is never going to be around just green energy or any other thing just related to environment. We just want to have an entire balance between all these things. Now, we are indeed honored and really lucky to have someone like Dr. Cyril, a really globally sought after authority in this area. So we feel we are in the best hands, Cyril. We really feel we are in the best hands. The whole kind of objective of today's session is to set the context for the whole discussions and deliberations in the coming sessions or episodes of the series. As a think tank, our main motivation behind kicking this off is a very, very timely intervention by navigating through the pressing issues of sorry, apologies for that. The pressing issues of the energy market. We will definitely touch the global and the local challenges, but we'll also touch the country commitment, the commitments of various countries around the world. Of course, a bit of overemphasis will be given to the countries in Asia and finally to India, because that is how the whole series is going to be finally navigated and narrowed down. Ultimately, in a nutshell, we want to engage all the relevant stakeholders as well as the policymakers. As the topic says, we will be touching the energy transition and the fuels of the future. When I look at energy transition, it is not an end destination. It is just a pathway towards the overall transformation of energy. Fundamentally from, I would say, the fossil base to a zero carbon means. By when? The general talk and the general objective is by the end of the first half of the century. Obviously connected to the conclusion or the plans from COP26. And we all know the fuels of the future will be a totally different blend from what we see today. At least some of us think that what we are seeing today is very, very advanced. We all agree. But many of us think that this is it. No, it is not it. In another 3 decades, the world is going to be different and totally different. Now, is it an easy exercise? Or is it a very easy path for us to follow, the world to follow? Absolutely not. Shifting the economy into renewable sources of energy, though it is key, it has got its own challenges, multi-dimensional challenges. Fundamentally, the national energy systems must transition first. And it needs to be pretty fast as well. And we also need to make sure that whatever we do is coupled with significant financial advantages for the business, not only for just a better world. We need to define it much beyond just a better place to live for the people. We need to balance what we keep as an ultimate objective with the business around the whole thing. And now, Dr. Cyril, can I request you to just share your thoughts just to introduce the topic before I get into my specific questions or points to bounce with you?
Yes, of course. I'm extremely happy to be doing this today. And of course, I'm also honored to be invited as the first one to address this in a long series. My task is rather a huge one. The world is set to be changed extremely after setting a global economy which was first based on coal, and since, let's say, 1910, 1920, increasingly on oil and gas, we are now trying to change the world into something else. And that is what we have been calling energy transition. And as Madhu extremely clearly said, it's an energy transition. And an energy transition indicates it's not going to be changed in 2022 or 2023. It's going to take longer than what we have been expecting already. And just remind yourself of that. In the 1970s, the first reports came out. One of them was the Club of Rome, and they indicated that things are needed to be changed because energy is going to be an issue in the future, and energy reserves, at least in the 1970s, they were stating oil and gas would be finished by 1995, 1998. Well, this did not happen, but hydrocarbons are a major aspect of our world, our life, our economy, our society, but have a major climate-related issue. Hydrocarbons emit, when you burn them, emit CO2, and CO2 is a potent climate change related substance. Now, in COP26 2021, the world, at least the countries that were attending it, set a point on the horizon for net zero, which means at least we should not be emitting more emissions than we can capture. And that means in 2050, according to the overwhelming majority of the big countries, in 2050, CO2 emissions should be net zero. Emphasis on net, which means some can still be producing more and the others will need to reduce it even further. Now, all of that has been put by politicians and academics taking it not as a foresight scenario, but as a backside scenario. We put a point 2050 over India 2070, and we go back and see what do we need to do in the next years to reach that net zero target. Where there is a major issue in energy transition is that we are at this moment slightly addressing it not as an energy transition, maybe, but as an energy revolution. We are setting in place certain strategies that refuse the fact that hydrocarbons will be, for much longer than most of us even think, will be a major part of our economy and society. Just keep in mind, according to most assessments, global GDP in 2050 will be twice as much as in 2021. So 2 times more GDP will be there in 2050, which means in the end, energy demand globally will increase. We are not going to decrease energy demand. Global energy demand will increase. In whichever scenario of the IEA or EIA or the UN, etc., energy demand on the global scale will increase. So to counter an energy demand growth, while at the same time oil and gas are not phased out, but according to the EIA in the USA and OPEC even, energy demand in 2045 will be 5 to 6 million barrels per day higher than in 2022. We will need to invest in additional renewables or carbon capture technology or fuels of the future that are less or even hopefully negatively emitting CO2. Now, to reach that, there are several strategies to be followed, but I would like now to end with just one statement. The most optimistic assessments imply that we need 131 trillion US dollars of investments in renewables to reach our net zero 2050 targets. At the same time, we will need 11.8 or 11.3 trillion investments in upstream oil and gas to keep our energy at the same time still being available. All of that, take that together, that's 150 trillion US at purchasing power 2021. And keep that in mind, the total GDP of India is 2.9 trillion. So we have a challenge in front of us that maybe most people, because I do not have myself any idea how much 131 trillion US dollars is. Yeah, it's a hell of a lot of money, and we will need to see how we are able to get that money, because money is not for free. Yeah, whatever maybe politicians sometimes say, money is not for free, and at the same time the cost for the consumers are not going to go up. Yes, we all have been thinking that solar energy or electricity prices will go down. Well, look at Europe. We are looking at a doubling or trebling of electricity prices if you are now needing to buy electricity on the spot market. Matu.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was a very, very clear and loud setting of the whole the concept. Now, if you allow me, let me just bounce some thoughts I have to be shared with you. And the whole audience would be more than excited to see your views about it.
Yes, of course.
Okay, sorry, I think my video was off. Okay.
Okay.
Now, see what is happening. Okay, fine, good. See, to me, the actions and the conclusions of the COP26 sounded more like a collective commitment from the global leaders. But if the world is indeed committed towards the net zero by 2020, as you rightly said, Cyril, the investments have to be multidimensional. Now, when you look at the commitments from different countries around the world and the business, from the governments and the business around the world, what do you see as a change happening first, and how will it affect the whole ecosystem around the world around energy?
That's a key question. The commitments that we've heard at COP26 were extremely challenging. Most Western or larger economies committed themselves to net zero 2050, while at the same time, increasingly industry is also. Even international oil and gas companies, and I know there is some criticism on them, but even they are acknowledging now that things need to change. The main issue is that, first of all, COP26 agreements are a political statement. It's not a legally binding agreement that you can take people to court to, or governments, etc., and force it. So the main issue is now how to set in place certain strategies that are functional to reach the goals that we have set, 2050, while at the same time finding the necessary investment opportunities and financial backing to put these projects in place. And thirdly, without destabilizing, let's say, national, regional, and global economies, societal structures, and enforcing things on regions that are not yet where it's able to be done. I give you an example close home. Energy transition in Europe, or energy transition strategies in the EU and in the Netherlands, are almost being put down as a law, and companies will need to follow the rules. At the same time, when we are investing without taking into account all the issues that are connected to changing your energy supply future, you are indirectly and directly maybe destabilizing the energy system and the economic system that is in place by putting a full emphasis or a 100% emphasis on energy transition is renewable energy means all the other energy sources are out. You destabilizing the energy structure of your society. Now, is that wrong? Maybe not, because sometimes challenges in a system result in new developments, but on a very short term, look at the European energy crunch. We are confronted by the fact that renewables, so wind and solar, because that's how we are looking at it, are not always available, are not yet available at the level that they are able to substitute coal, gas, oil, and nuclear. So when we are substituting all with something new, sometimes you get a hiccup, and we could call it an energy crunch, and prices for consumers and for the industry will go sky high, which will lead to societal pressure, societal instability, and if things are not being dealt with rightly, an increased opposition to change. Now, this already happens in a region in the world where economies are strong, financial availability is there, consumer salaries are reasonably high, and still you see these issues. So when you then think that we can do this one by one, on the same level, at the same time, in the same time frame, in regions like emerging markets or in regions developing markets in Africa also, we will be confronted by the fact that things are maybe being pushed forward so quick that consumers, industry, society is not able to cope with the change at the level that is needed to change from oil and gas, which even at $85 per barrel is still reasonably cheap. But if you are trying to substitute coal, oil, and gas by, let's say, renewables, hydrogen, etc., the cost in the first years for societies that are not yet able to confront the increased cost are higher than that people sometimes understand. At the same time, challenges and the new strategy also is a major business opportunity, and Asian countries, China, India, etc., I think will be and should be extremely able to take part in this industrial change and make use of the opportunities that it holds. Most of these new technologies will come from startups. Research will be produced in what we in the Western Europe still see as a lower income, lower cost region. So Asia is more than able to take a huge chunk of the 131 trillion by setting up a feasible economical sector that is able to deal with these challenges. However, keep in mind, our society, our economy is hydrocarbon based. Hydrocarbons, and that's where the main issue is when I address oil and gas. Oil and gas is being presented always as being energy. Oil and gas is also, next to energy, products, yeah, plastics, fertilizer, etc. So we should be setting up in the energy transition period, so 2022, 2050 or 2070, a systemology in which hydrocarbons are being phased out as much as we can by renewable or by new fuels, because we will need to look for new additional fuels than the ideas than we have right now. But we also need to understand renewables, wind and solar. From electricity, you are not able to produce Nikes or Ray-Bans or fertilizer or whatever. So we need to diversify still our investments, and if you need in total maybe 150 trillion or most probably even more in the next years. Like my grandmother always said, we are only able to spend €1 one time. And if you split your euro, you do not get €2, but you get 2 times 50 cents, and it will not be enough to do and what we need and what we want. And keeping in mind, energy demand will grow substantially, most probably by 3 to 4.5% per year, every year. And most non-developed countries are still not able to take on all of the challenges of wind and solar or nuclear or especially hydrogen, as the cost, even that they are going down, costs are going up due to the fact that if demand for minerals and metals are increasing as much as they will be, all of these products will become not cheaper, they will become more expensive, especially up to 2030. And cost for emerging markets or even economical giants already as India are a major factor that people do know about, but most of the times do not want to talk about. Madhu.
Okay, good. So that was very clear insights into the whole thing. Now, let me take it from the energy transition part where you stopped. Now, we are seeing and hearing a lot of good things. Like, for example, in the US, the President Biden is presenting the Building Back Better, multi-trillion-dollar US plans. And in your player part of the world, Cyril, the European Union is seriously pushing for Green Deal, again, a multi-billion dollar part. Now, I think if I recollect, the EU wants to become the first climate neutral continent around the globe, which to me means should be meaning not only cleaner environment, but also more affordable energy, rather than just cleaner environment and smarter transport. I think that these are very much into agenda. But when you see the progress, I get a feeling like it is being a bit slowed down, or in some parts of the world, terribly slowed down due to possibly energy security issues, the cost, as you rightly said, the cost for renewable, sometimes in some parts of the world, it looks prohibitively high. And most importantly, the political unwill. As you rightly said, the COP26 is a political resolution. It has got no absolute legal binding. So when the political unwill happens, all these things will go back. So how do you see the coming years to develop in these areas?
COP26 luckily has brought back one major thing on the table: rationalism. And rationalism is needed to learn from the mistakes that we have made before 2021, and understand that if we want to have an energy transition, it also means a transition in the mindset of the people that will be confronted by the energy transition, aka the people in the whole world, but especially the first years, the people in Europe and in the US, because how it has been done has resulted in a destabilization of certain items of the economy. Now, to prevent the fact that opposition to energy transition is growing due to one single factor: the cost factor for consumers and the cost factor for the industry has not gone down, at least not in 2021, but has gone up. So rationalism is back on the table, at least in Western Europe, that politicians start to understand that it's not only an energy transition, it's a transition of the total society, and society, and India is also one, as the officially largest democracy in the world. Voters can change policies. So if you want to continue on the energy transition road, you need to make sure that you increase the support of your society. And that's not only the voters, but it's also the industry. Hiccups are there, hiccups will be there. And that's caused by the fact that consumers are still largely unwilling to pay for change. Change is not a major thingy that goes without pain. We all know that if you are overweight and you want to change, then you need to lose weight, and that's not by not only eating less but by doing more. And that will hurt you. Now, did this hurt already has cost some of the support in the European Union and also in the USA for certain measures that have been taken. The same is gonna go and is gonna happen in the rest of the world to change the energy system of emerging markets or economical giants like China or India is not going to be easy, because also China and India are hydrocarbon based, maybe not as much as gas, but it's coal and oil. Energy in India, energy in China is coal and oil. Now, if you want to change that, you need to not only put in place a feasible substitution, but also educate people that it's for the good of all that you need to change, and it's for the good of all, including the second generation after you and the third generation, that we will need to be able to substitute one kind of energy for the other kind of energy. Where there is another major constraint, and luckily in 2020, 2021, we start to realize that projections of how energy supply will change or can be changed, reality is a little bit different. To wean economies off from oil and gas or even coal, even in the major developed markets in the West, the USA, UK, Germany, the Netherlands, etc., it did not happen almost at all. Germany, yeah, a major economy, well-known worldwide as the first economy that was targeting the so-called Energiewende, yeah, the energy change, did not succeed. Why? Because things always happen less fast, less applicable than what planners, consultants like us, politicians are writing down. You put in the money, you change from oil and gas to wind and solar, and you forget, and I do not understand why we forget, because even my young child of 10 years old says wind is not always there, and solar during the night is also not there because the sun is not shining. But we forget that coal, oil, nuclear, gas, we can produce energy 24/7. If it's now hot or cold, we are able to, and with the new energy, the new fuels, we are confronted by one major issue. We are still not able to store electricity at the volumes that we need to keep our economy, our lights, our heaters on during the time that there is no wind and solar. So these things are starting to drip or trickle through to policy makers, and they start to understand we are not talking about an energy revolution. It's not going to happen in 2-3 years. It's an energy transition. If we are planning like we have been doing it, it would have become an energy revolution. No revolution in the history has been there without bloodshed. And I'm not talking about killing, etc. No, unemployment, huge economical issues. So we should reassess how we approach it. We should reassess how we put the steps together. An energy transition is building a bridge from point A, hydrocarbons, to point B, something else. It's not, we are still an infant in energy transition. And an infant is not able to jump 8 meters. We need to start to learn how to walk, how to run, and then maybe to jump. Yeah.
Yes, that's interesting. Now, when you connect this transition again back to what you just talked, the politicians in, or I would say the governments, I should not use the word just politicians, sometimes it's taken in a bad tone. So the governments, and in some countries, even globally, the financial world is considering or even going towards blocking the hydrocarbon investments. Even in the International Energy Agency started talking about it, and which triggered a lot of for and against deliberations around it. As someone very intimately engaged in the oil and gas industry, don't get me wrong, I'm not going biased. I just can't see that easily happening. You just, as you rightly said earlier, when you said X trillions of dollars are required for this transition, it is still after considering some path met by the hydrocarbons. It's going to be a balance between the whole thing. And you need to look at the economics as well. Even as you said, like even 85 US for a barrel is expensive. When you convert it to energy, it is expensive in many parts of the world. So when you think of a transition from that to renewable, which are much more costlier in many forms, which we'll come to later, as you rightly said, we don't need a revolution. What we need is a transition ending to a transformation. So how do you see that thing, the reduction in the investments in hydrocarbon? What would be your thoughts, which would be practically feasible in the long run?
You are right. There is what I would say there is at present a clash of civilizations in the financial world. There is a growing stream in international finance that wants to commit to a non-hydrocarbon approach, including strategies based on SDGs and ESG, etc. At the same time, we still understand without oil and gas, the lights are out. It's simple. So there is a growing conflict of what reality is and what we think reality should be. Now, I do agree $85 per barrel is expensive. But if you look at, let's say, what the cost of hydrogen is at present, $85 per barrel is extremely cheap. Because if we want to do a hydrogen-based economy, I think that the lights in India are out. Because even in the Netherlands, governmental agencies are canceling hydrogen-based transportation projects because nobody understood that hydrogen is still expensive. Yet it's clean energy, at least if it's green energy, and even then, green hydrogen, then it's more clean than other things, if at least the green hydrogen is not only linked to wind and solar. Yeah, where the main issue is that energy is never going to be for free. Whatever politicians are going to tell you, energy is not for free. Not one single company in the world, not one single utility will sell you electricity for €0, $0 or 0 rupees. No one, because they will be answering to their shareholders, etc., and say, hey, my margin was -8. Be happy. No, never, ever. So whatever renewable energy costs are going to be, the cost of energy is never going to be 0. People are going to need to pay for energy. At the same time, it's much more easier in developing countries to go into a more electrification of the economy because the power grids and infrastructure is available. When I look at lots of areas in India or China or Africa or Eastern Europe even, yeah, or Russia, to say we are gonna 100% electrify our economy and transportation, I say stop lying because you're not able to. At this moment, you are not able to. There is no electricity grid available in those areas that you are targeting. So if I hear about we will change the world and everybody is going to drive an EV, I start laughing. Because how are you able to drive an EV if you do not have electricity? You do not have even electricity for your radio or your mobile. Your mobile is a little bit a smaller charging issue. Your mobile or your fridge or your hospital. Yeah. And then we are talking about putting in place 100% of EVs. For your info, if the Dutch would be driving 100% EV, we would have a major blackout within an hour. Because our electricity grid is not able to charge all of these EVs at the same time. And then they say, yeah, but you can also charge them at 3 o'clock at night. When it's -8 outside, you are not waking up at 3 o'clock at night to charge your EV. You will come home from work and charge. Yeah. And then your electricity grid in Holland will go down and there is a power blackout in all of Europe. Yeah. So it's what I say. Rationalism should be included as #1 in any energy transition strategy that people are thinking about. If you want to put the Netherlands, the total economy of the Netherlands on wind and solar, we are going to have a huge issue because there won't be any more space to build a house, including the North Sea, so offshore the Netherlands. At the same time, for your info, the Dutch major steel and aluminium producer which is owned by an Indian company, well known, yeah? And I'm not going to make a commercial, yeah? If they need to go on hydrogen, green hydrogen, they need to have 3 to 6 gigawatt of offshore wind energy to produce that, to have their plant on green hydrogen. That's the total offshore wind production of the Netherlands for one plant. Yeah, so it's not as easy. I am fully behind the fact I do not want to use oil and gas for electricity, for energy, because then you use it only once. But be a little bit realistic and rational and understand that when in Northwest Europe, we are not even able to do it at this moment. How are we able to enforce, yeah, COP26, yeah, IEA, yeah, who said no more investments in upstream, otherwise we're not reaching 2050. And 3 weeks later, the same IEA went into the news and was calling upon OPEC to produce more oil and gas because we need it. So explain it. Or they have silos in the offices and they do not talk to each other at the coffee machine. Yeah, it's not that easy. It's an energy transition from coal to oil and gas. It took us more than 100 years.
Correct.
And King Coal has been declared dead already 8 times. Demand for coal globally at this moment is at the highest and is growing.
In fact, that is my next question. In fact, that is very, very interesting. Actually, now when if we try to move to the second part of it now, from the transition to the fuels of the future, actually my first point is related to exactly where you stopped. Like, okay, I'm trying to navigate the whole discussion a bit towards Asia and India, because that's our ultimate focus, to map this out, map our country's status and structure to the global platform. Now, when I look at the Indian power sector, I had some statistics in front of me. As you rightly said, coal tops with 57%, with about 202 gigawatts. And there are other sources. When I look at the renewables, it is substantially big. It is 26% with about 104 gigawatts. While the natural gas, that's very interesting. Natural gas is in the 5th position, and nuclear is very much right after that with about 6.7 gigawatt. Now, but when you look at Asia in general, India and China obviously in particular, where do you see the energy transition is going to? Because when you consider the investments happening in coal and nuclear, which I have taken coal and nuclear as the two extreme ends of at least the Indian breakdown or the power consumption. Where do you see the natural gas is fitting in? As you rightly said, it took 100 years for us to slowly transition from coal to some extent in hydrocarbon. Now, where do you see natural gas fitting into the whole equation now?
If I would be advisor to Asian entities, Asian governments, my main focus at present would be on 2 major options. One is nuclear, yeah. But of course, it has its ups and downs, and we are bombarded by misconceptions about the nuclear disaster in Fukushima, which was not a nuclear disaster, but a tsunami. Yeah, so yeah, but okay. The other major option to bring down emissions ASAP is natural gas, and that's for China, that's for Japan, that's for India, that's for, I would say, 95% of the world. Natural gas, like the IEA once said in their golden age of gas report, and after that they said no more hydrocarbons. Natural gas is the most easily available, applicable energy transition fuel for the next 10, 20 years. If you want to bring down your emissions related to transportation, but also industry and energy, increase natural gas because it substitutes straight away for your coal emissions. And coal, yes, I do understand, and I'm even from a former coal mining region. Coal should be the first one to be phased out. Coal emits the most. Yeah, and natural gas is an easily to be fitted into your energy system fuel, including transportation. Yeah, it's easy, it's readily available. Yes, it's at this moment the prices are sky high. Yes, I do admit it, but if you convert it again to hydrogen, it's still cheaper while it's extremely high. Yeah. Without gas in the transition, we are going to be looking at major constraints in the energy transition strategies the next years. No, there is no doubt that we need to have natural gas. But the main issue is we have not been investing a lot into natural gas anymore. Yeah, you are in Saudi, and even the Saudis, what people do not know mostly, because Saudi is known to be oil, but Saudi is a major gas producer also. Yeah, is putting his eyes on extremely increasing its gas production. For Asia, gas, nuclear. Maybe after 2040, and then I'm optimistic, hydrogen will play a role. But at this moment, we are not able to produce enough renewable energy to counter the demand of global energy, to counter the growth of demand for energy. We need to have NN. We need to increase both. And gas can substitute coal. Gas can substitute oil. So it's available. We can produce it. We can put it into the system. It will bring emissions substantially down. And most, I think, if we need to make quick wins, gas is number one. We can do that within a year, 2 years. Nuclear will take you 5 to 8 years. purely solar and wind, okay, maybe you can put your projects in place within 2 to 5 years. But how are you going to transport it from the wind project to the house in a small, small village in the middle of India, where people also do not understand the fact that hydrocarbons are the best energy transport option that we have, and not transport as a fuel. No, during transportation of the energy from place A to place B, oil and gas and coal lose the less energy in the total trip. Yeah, oil and gas are the best to be transported. We also have only a transportation system for oil and gas in place. Hydrogen, if we want to do a hydrogen-based economy, we do not have the options to produce hydrogen at the same place that we need it, and we do not have the option to transport it because we do not have the ships for it, we do not have the pipeline infrastructure for it, and the total energy amount in a kilo of hydrogen is 2.3 times less as in the same amount of LNG. So if you need to have ships to transport it from, let's say, Saudi to India, your hydrogen ship for the same amount of energy needs to be 2.3 times larger. They don't fit in your port.
Correct. I think, we are all agreeing that the hydrocarbons are the most economic form of energy for numerous reasons, and that is why we keep talking about a very phased transition of the whole thing. I think it was a very wonderful insight, and I would have loved to have a bit more time of interactions with you, but I think unfortunately the time is not so much in our favor. And if I just want to add something to, now I think we should have planned a 2-hour session. We will consider going forward. As you rightly said, the other things are the renewable things. For you brought a beautiful example. If the whole Netherlands is going to be powered from solar and wind, there will be no place for people to build houses. This is a very interesting, interesting, because the footprints are going to be footprints for these sources of energy are enormous. Unbelievably great. And many people really don't understand. I would add one more dimensions to it, like another cost to it is the cost of storing that energy for durations where you don't have the source running, whether it is solar to store energy. So that is another enormous cost, and a beautiful economics we have brought in for transporting hydrogen. By the way, Saudi Arabia, in Saudi, we have started seeing hydrogen cars rarely here and there, mainly promoted by Saudi Aramco. So we have started seeing some, But again, as you rightly said, it's not an easy and economic source of energy to be transported across a border. Even within a large country, it's not an economic source of energy unless some other innovative things come in. Now, Dr. Cyril, would you mind if we are actually bombarded with tons of questions, and our team have picked probably 6-7 questions. If you don't mind, can I throw 3 or 4 of them?
Of course.
Okay, the first one is from Nowtech, Mr. or Miss, I do not know, but Nowtech. What kind of renewable or electromechanical energy technology will play the most important role towards bringing sustainability and energy efficiencies together? What he asks is, what would bring sustainability and energy efficiency together? It's an interesting question. So how do you touch that question?
Looking at what is available right now, yeah, and that's our main issue. Yeah, we only know the things that we know. Yeah,
correct.
So looking at what is available now, the most feasible, directly available option, and I know this is going to be controversial maybe to some, is nuclear. Nuclear does not emit CO2. Yeah, nuclear, and I'm not looking at the nuclear plants of, let's say, the Ukraine, yeah, but the current technology up to date are feasible, are very safe, secure. So if you want to be having a quick, and quick means within the next 5 to 8 years, nuclear is a major option. Solar and wind are the second option because technology is proven, but keep in mind you need to have the area, you need to have space, and you need to be able to set up an energy system that is capable of dealing with times or days or even maybe weeks that you will not have availability of enough wind and solar. So those are feasible. Hydrogen is going to take years, and people need to keep in mind hydrogen, it's not energy. Hydrogen is an energy transport option. Hydrogen itself does not do anything. It's not energy. And to produce hydrogen, you need to have a hell of a lot of other energy available to produce hydrogen. At the same time, keep in mind, hydrogen, and that's physics and chemistry, to produce hydrogen, you need to have water. And if you do not have water, forget hydrogen. Yeah, so, yeah, but will there be other options? Yes, we will have. Most probably, yes, we will have, or we will go back to older ideas that we had, yeah, fusion, etc. The main energy option is what the sun does already for billions of years, and that's called nuclear or fusion or whatever. Keep in mind, to become net zero, it takes more than your energy system. Net zero is more than your energy system. Net zero is we need to find also substitutions for other emitting sources. And that's including your t-shirts and laptops and whatever, because oil and gas is also in there. Yeah, so it's not that easy. At the same time, do not overdo it. Plants, agriculture, etc., cannot live without CO2. So we should not take more CO2 out of the air than that we need. Too much oxygen in the air also can kill us.
Good. I think that answers that question. I think it very clearly answers that question, or even beyond that. I have it is half a dozen selected questions, but I would restrict to one last question if you appreciate, and we'll make it short. This is a blend of questions, two questions, one from Mr. K.V. Thomas and one from Ms. Meghna Pradhan. As the energy expert, do you envisage whether the world would achieve really net zero by 2050, considering your own arguments that the GDP of major countries by 2050 would be twice? and there would be increased demand for the energy. In fact, that was one of the other questions I wanted to bounce with you, but out of time, we ran out of time. And India hopes to be net zero by 2070. So what is your personal, I know it's a very, you could answer in 15 ways, but what is your very personal thought if I guarantee that we won't publish it?
I'm okay. As a Dutchman, I have been taught to be extremely optimistic. Yeah, as a Dutch football fan, after 3 times losing a final at the World Championship football, I still hope it will happen. Yeah. Looking at net zero 2050, I would not be putting my salary or the future of my kids on that we will be able to reach it in 2050. It's a point on the horizon. We will be doing our utmost to reach how much we can. But I think the challenges that are looking at us or will confront us, and I'm not even talking about Corona, etc., to change something which is 100% hydrocarbon to almost zero hydrocarbon. It's going to be a challenge, and I do not expect that it's going to be net zero. I also do not think maybe we will need net zero. Maybe we are able to find also additional technology to cope with increases. Also, do not forget, we are looking at this whole phenomena from a human standpoint. If you look at it as a geologist or a physicist or a historian, CO2 levels on this global ball have been higher before and much higher before, except there were no humans. Yeah, we will need to do our utmost. If global population, and that's maybe a thought that I want to put in the mind of more and more people. A theorist, economic historian called Malthus, the Malthusian theory, maybe one of the reasons that we are looking at the phenomena that we have right now is becoming much more clear. If you put the use of energy through history in the same graphic as the emissions of CO2 in the last centuries, and then put them in the same graph with the total population in this world growth, I think we have a correlation that, I know this is very tricky. Maybe one of the reasons is also we love to have kids. And I love to have kids. I have kids, so I'm one of them. But more people, more demand for energy, more demand for food, more demand for cars, mobiles, internet. We are introducing additional sources of energy demand. Zoom is not energy efficient. Yeah. It's not going to be that easy.
Very correct.
I hope we will reach at least 50% of what we plan. Then I think we are doing an extremely good job. And it's going to be easier in the Western world than in the rest of the world. I cannot propose strategies or enforce strategies that decline or constrain the economical welfare growth or societal growth in other areas. Yeah, hydrocarbons and investments for Africa are needed. Without that, Africa is lost. Hydrocarbons for India, you will need it. The main issue is you can do maybe more to dampen the growth and maybe substitute one emitter for one that is much less emitting than coal or hard coal or whatever. Choices are easy. Financial costs are high.
Are the drivers. Those are the drivers.
And politics, all of this will affect the place on the list of geopolitical powers, relations, linkage, alliances. OPEC will still be there. Maybe there will be a new OPEC.
Yes, very correct, and they will be still influential.
Because they will produce gas, they will produce hydrogen and solar.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much, Cyril. I think, as you rightly said, there are multiple options, and even if you achieve a particular percentage, you chose 50%, whatever percentage different people paid, it's a big advancement. But as globally, the world is seeing more political will towards achieving that. That's very good. And if you look at the disruptions and innovations happening around the world in every field, we have reasons to hope that those disruptions and innovative concepts can enter into this field as well, which would speed up the whole process and balance the economies and the use of power from different sources. And thank you so very much. And on a personal note, CPPR would like to engage more and more with you, and we would connect with you separately. Now, with this, thank you so very much from the very bottom of my heart and every one of us in CPPR and all of the participants for this event. Thank you so very much, sir. And Ritika, I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. I would like to express gratitude from CPPR to Dr. Cyril Weddershoven for accepting our invitation and leading the discussion today, and for setting the tone for all of our upcoming India Energy Samvad. We are also grateful to Dr. Pillai for being a visionary and a mentor for CPPR, especially in this theme, and for anchoring our Samvad series. A heartfelt thanks to our audience members who have joined us from around the world, from different time zones, and who have engaged with this topic by posing questions to the speakers. At CPPR, we look forward to continued engagement with all of our speakers, guests, as well as audience members on this theme. Please keep a lookout for our social media posts and emails alerting you to our monthly dialogue series and other activities. I would like to alert the audience on the Zoom platform, especially, to fill out the feedback form through the link in the chat window, as we would like to know your opinion on this as well as other dialogue series that you would want us to engage in. With this, we would like to close today's event, wishing you all a very good evening and a great week ahead. Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you.